So let me not waste too much time because we've just got so much going on tonight. And I am introducing Roger Waters. And I've said before on these, this is someone who needs no introduction. And boy, do I need it this time. But hold on one moment. Roger Waters, as a founding member, lyricist, and principal composer of Pink Floyd during the band's most influential and creative period, Roger Waters has achieved global success and global renown. Waters co-founded Pink Floyd in the mid-1960s. Under Waters' guidance, Pink Floyd made a series of best-selling albums during the 1970s, of which the most successful and iconic were The Dark Side of the Moon, Wish You Were Here, Animals, and The Wall. Roger Waters left Pink Floyd in 1985 and is now one of the most successful solo artists in the world. Roger Waters has been politically active all his life and is a champion of human rights. Now, I know I cannot hear you out there, but I know you are all cheering and clapping, and maybe even a few of you are doing this. Let's give it up for Roger Waters. Yeah. And Matt Ho. Matt Ho is the 2022 North Carolina Green Party candidate for U.S. Senate. In 2009, Matt resigned in protest from his post in Afghanistan with the State Department over the American escalation of the war. In 2010, Matt was named the Ridenhour Prize recipient for truth-telling. And imagine having somebody who has been celebrated for truth-telling in the US Senate. Matt's writings have appeared in online and print periodicals, such as the Huffington Post, USA Today, the Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post. He's been a guest on hundreds of news programs on radio and television networks, including CBS, CNN, Fox, MSNBC, NPR, the BBC, and PBS. So everybody, let's give it up for Matt Ho and Roger Waters. Woo! And let me just very briefly go over the format for tonight. And there's just going to be a really great conversation among two men who have given all in this for human rights, for peace, and for a better world. There will be a brief period of question and answer, and I want you to know it's going to be a little briefer tonight for those of you who are used to these. But we'll do what we can, and it's just such an honor to have Roger Waters here. And then we have a very special treat. Roger Waters has a special performance of the bar that we're going to play. I don't know how many of you understand what this word means, but I am a bit verklempt over that. And that's going to be so exciting. And then, we'll move on to talking a little about the campaign and the needs of this campaign, and then closing statements. So I think I've said everything I need to say. So without further ado, Matt, take it away. And whoever has me on spotlight, take me off it. Thank you.
Well done.
Thanks, Rose. And Roger, thank you for joining us, and everyone who's watching us here on Zoom and on Facebook and on YouTube. Thank you for showing up for this and for spending this hour with us. Roger, I just want to kind of get right into it with you because obviously we could talk, all night long, but we don't have that luxury. And I wanted to begin with what you and I bonded over, and the poignancy of that. So I was introduced to you because of mutual friends of ours in Veterans for Peace and in Veterans for Intelligence, Veteran Intelligence Professionals for Sanity. So guys like Doug Zachary, Ray McGovern, Todd Pierce, Tarek Kauf, Ellen Davidson as well. Not a guy, but one of the best women and persons I've ever met in my life. And we bonded over Palestine. And this week, I woke up to the news on Monday that a young man that I had met in Palestine had been shot dead by the Israeli army, a young man named Qusay al-Tamimi. This was a young man who, when we were in Nabi Saleh, and I think you'll recall the video you were shown of when I was in Palestine, when I was in the West Bank with Veterans for Peace, where we got into the fights with the Israeli settlers, where one of them hit me with their car, where the Israeli army shows up and gasses us and fires live rounds at us. That young man is in that. And he was shot dead this week by Israeli occupation forces. I'd like to dedicate this conversation with you to him and his family. If you see over my left shoulder, there's a photo there, and that's photos from Hebron. And if you look closely, you'd see our mutual friend, Ray McGovern, walking away because he had just been struck in the arm by a tear gas canister. The Israeli border police, when they fire tear gas, they shoot it level. So if Ray had been struck in the head, he probably would have been killed. That's what they do over there. But in that photo, I met a man, or during that day that photo was taken, I met a man named Bassem al-Tamimi, and that is Qusay's uncle. And that family has just been wrecked by violence due to the occupation. So I know that's kind of heavy to start this off with. It's poignant, but as we were talking about earlier, the obscenity isn't our language. It isn't like what we say and do. It's the obscenity of these wars. And so you just came off of this big tour, widely celebrated. And I think one of the things that kind of connects my campaign to you and your tour was the enthusiasm. So would you mind talking a bit about what you experienced on that tour, the enthusiasm that you felt across the country for, this anti-war, human rights, end to the oppression, the occupations, the suffering that continues to go on in our names?
Sure. I can talk about that till the cows come home.
Yeah.
Would that be another cousin of Ahed Tamimi's?
Yes, it is. It is. Yeah.
Of
So
course.
Ahed's comes. Yes. Yeah. Ahed, who she became famous several years ago for people who don't remember her, standing up to the Israeli soldiers who were occupying her town. And, when I was there, Roger, I had a very tough time. We went over there with Veterans for Peace. The idea is that we went over there, so me and a few other guys, along with some older guys, but, Mike and Will and I, we had all taken part in the occupations. And it was really difficult for us to go through that because we were seeing the Israeli army do what we had done in Iraq and Afghanistan. And it was devastating on a number of levels, some really dark moments for me personally because of that. You're having a mirror held up to you like that in real life. Not just sitting back here at home, reflecting on it, having nightmares about it, but seeing it get acted out in front. But Ahed and her family, and yeah, I mean, it continues to go on. But your thoughts on what you just went through in terms of your tour, in terms of meeting people who understand this, because I find that's what's amazing is meeting people, more and more people who understand this.
Yeah, well, it's fascinating that you should say that because that feels like in a different way, like my experience has been on this tour of North America. We've done maybe 10 or 12 gigs in Canada and 25 or 26 in the United States. And we did the last 3 in Mexico. And it was fascinating to see the show develop and to see the way people responded. I'm singing a part of one of the songs from the show later on your show. So yeah. I don't want to give too much of that away. And because it's about that little bit of that song is about very specific things. But there were things that kept striking my band. I listened to my band off stage, and they're not as active in politics as I am, but they're all good men and women and true. And they all have big hearts, and and odd things during the show strike them. At the end of Run Like Hell, where I'm playing the part of a fascist Führer character, it's very, very Third Reich in the theater of it all. So I'm playing this complete kind of arsehole. And at the end of it, it finishes with the collateral murder video that some of your listeners might not know, but I'm sure most of them do, shot in 2007 in Baghdad of the US servicemen gunning down the 2 Reuters cameramen and a number of other unarmed civilians. And it's devastating to watch. But after it, we're in the introduction to a song of mine called Deja Vu, there's a commentary, which is sort of me talking in a way, saying, what was that? What happened? Who were they killing? Yeah. Why were they killing them? Blah, blah, blah. Well, where did the footage come from? And then it goes up and it says it was leaked by or something, I think it says by a very courageous US servicewoman or whatever it is, Chelsea Manning. I feel quite overcome, even sitting here now, that the audiences erupt everywhere in response to the name Chelsea Manning. Yeah. And when you think what this disgusting government of yours has done to that incredibly courageous woman, since she committed that very courageous act of sending that footage to Julian Assange, another extraordinarily courageous person, and a great publisher and a great journalist, and a great credit to his to, to his profession and so on and so forth. So that's kind of one thing. A big lump from the second half of Wish You Were Here, and I play the whole of the second side of Dark Side of the Moon from start to finish, including Any Color You Like, all of it. And playing it and listening to it every night, I am struck by how direct it is in its political and emotional message of love. It's exactly what you're doing here tonight. I know you're trying to raise money, you're trying to push your campaign on, you're trying, whatever it is.
Right.
But what you're really trying to do is you're trying to nudge the behemoth that is the empire of the United States of America into a more humane position, so that it ceases to become the monster in everybody's life. The United States is what children hide under their beds at night for, or they would if they, weren't dunked in buckets of propaganda every day and told that we're trying to free the world and make everybody happy and make everybody democratic and make sure that everybody has a wonderful life, like we all do. What? Hang on, like who does in America? We all? What's all this we all? Because your country, I live here, I pay taxes here, I live here, I see it. There's a lot that I see that's great. There's a lot about the people that I adore. There's a lot about the country that I adore. But the ruling class in this country are almost indescribably appalling in every possible way. And they, unfortunately, a tiny clique of them have risen to positions of power, and funded as they are by the richest citizens of the United States, they are leading us all to the edge of the precipice and telling us to leap over it. And we are so propagandized that we're half inclined to do so. And one of the things that I'm sure we will be talking about tonight is the war in Ukraine, which is a sort of, it's a kind of focal point of all the impulses, your impulse to be kind to people and mine, and to love and look after our brothers and sisters if possible, and the neocons impulse, Dick Cheney. Let's just put it down. Let's say Dick. It's Dick and Paul and this. I mean, I could run off about 20 Christian names of these monsters, complete monsters. But that would be a waste of time. So there's this drama going on before our very, very eyes, but unfortunately, all our lives are at stake, because we live on a globe where there are certain global powers, including the United States and Russia and China. Those are the main three, but there's also the UK and France and Israel that have nuclear weapons. So it only needs one tiny misstep and we're all dead.
Yep.
I mean, as it is, they all gather in Davos every year and go, how can we kill everybody faster than we are now and get richer ourselves? Because that's what Davos is about, that, the World Economic Forum, or whatever they call themselves. Mm-hmm. And they go around there with the clown prince. I nearly used the F word.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Again, I mean, hey, Roger, right? Fuck is not the obscenity. War is the obscenity.
Well, yeah, you're right. You're right about that. I know I'm blathering a bit, but
no.
You were asking me about the show.
One of the things you brought up, the collateral murder video. And so, I resigned from my position more than 7 years. We've been in Afghanistan for 8.5, killing people every day on an industrial scale. And what do you think we're doing over there? But your video, what you do in the show, and I think for people who haven't seen it, it is really spectacular, the way you combine the music, the politics, but then the imagery, the videos. I mean, just absolutely to really put people into an environment of performance, but also something that's very visceral, and it's tough. It's tough standing there. And I've heard that because you've been very good to Veterans for Peace. You really have been. I attended the show because you gave a ton of tickets to Veterans for Peace, happened all across the country. And we've been talking about this. And it's tough because we've got to watch this stuff. But also, too, what comes with that is the relationship that we have with others, though, because here we have this rock star speaking to it, speaking the truth. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for someone to speak the truth about this because, you know, as veterans, we get this nonsense. We get this unholy hell we have to go through of being thanked for our service. You know, I go to that same arena where I saw you out in Raleigh, the PNC Arena. I go watch the Carolina Hurricanes there. At some point, they're going to say, hey, all the veterans stand up so we can applaud you. And you're thinking, you're going to stand up and applaud me because I took part in organized murder? Right. I mean, but so being in that, so yeah, I mean, getting back to your show, you know, and your relationship with the people that you're coming across, that experience of the cheering when you bring up Chelsea Manning. I noticed the cheering that went up when you labeled the presidents as war criminals. The amount of people who feel like this is just wrong what we're doing, and then the way it opens, where you have this video of people who are annihilated, obliterated, just by a nuclear, and we're living that right now. I mean, we have a Secretary of State, right? My friend George, who's on this thing tonight, was just talking with Chris Hedges about, you know, this idea that we've got a Secretary of State who's running around purchasing weapons to give to Ukraine rather than negotiate peace, while we have that nuclear holocaust hanging over our heads. So yeah, I mean, but getting back to that, because I really want to explore this idea of your relationship with people as you discuss these things, which is very uncomfortable for many Americans. I think your interview with Michael Smerconish on CNN really showed that, how uncomfortable it is when you put forward these truths.
Well, I mean, the thing with Michael only became uncomfortable really because he hasn't the faintest idea what he's talking about, and he wants to pretend that he has, but he hasn't done any of the research. All Michael Smerconish has done is to learn the Western propaganda view of whatever it is that might be happening anywhere in the world. He's okay on Israel, Palestine. It may be that he's slightly more balanced, but the thing about the Ukraine and pumping all of these weapons, billions and billions and billions, hundreds of billions, probably by the end of the day, worth of weapons in there, is not being seen by the American people for what it is, which is a way of stealing from the poor and giving to the rich, because it fosters nothing but increased profits for the hate war industry, which is a huge part of the American economy, and it's a huge part of the way that the ruling class steal money from you, from all the ordinary people in America. It's how they steal money from you and put it in their own pocket. It's no surprise that I read some figures the other day that since quite a long time ago, since 1978. The way, and this is people who work for the ruling class, not them themselves, like the CEOs in companies, their earnings have gone up by 1,600% over that period of time, and that working class people, their incomes have gone up by 3% over that amount of time. So it's 0.0000 something a year. And obviously inflation has been 6-7% or whatever it is. So basically they're saying, you motherfuckers are going to work for less and less and less and less. And we are going to make more and more and more and more profits. And we cannot believe that you stand for it. Right. Why don't you rise up? Why don't you elect Matthew Ho to the Senate, so that he can stand up and make some changes and give you a fair crack of the whip, because you don't get it. I listened to the latest Chris Hedges, Noam Chomsky conversation, part 2 of it. Blah, 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 fascists taking over the world and blah, blah, blah. And it's all right. We can go, well, yeah, we know. Well, yeah, we do know it, but it's happening. And it's happening here in the United States. This What is the name of the case that's now coming before the Supreme Court? It's called Moore versus something. Anyway, it's
it's
the
North Carolina.
state.
It's North Carolina. It comes out of North Carolina, where I'm at, right?
And
Yeah.
it comes so the case comes from there, but it's going to the Supreme Court.
Right.
And if they get it to fall the right way, which they will, because they have a 6-3 domination of the Supreme Court, how anybody let that happen, I will never know. What happened at the end of the Obama administration? They just went, oh, we don't really care who's on the Supreme Court. Let's not say anything. Maybe everything will be all right in the end, even if we let that moron Kavanaugh, the sex pervert, onto the Supreme Court.
Well,
even though he's a Christian fascist who wants to destroy the world because he's looking forward to Armageddon or whatever it is. But that's weird. That you might have extreme right-wing fascist Christians ruling this country for 1,000 years if that law gets passed. Because local legislatures will be allowed to gainsay the popular vote and say, no, this is what's going to, at least as I understand it. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, it is. It's very dangerous. And it comes out of North Carolina. People who aren't familiar with it, it would allow state. It's based on this individual state legislators theory, which has been discredited for centuries, particularly since the Civil War. But has with Alito and others in the court, it has that possibility of now being established that the Constitution, in its reading, gives the state legislatures complete control over the elections. So that means they can do whatever they want in the elections. If the popular vote comes back, they can just ignore the popular vote. They can shut down polling places. They can put up all kinds of restrictions on voting because, according to them, the Constitution gives that power to state legislatures. It's completely inane. It has no bearing. It really is something that is very dangerous. But to your point about what happened, I believe it's because the Democratic Party for decades was afraid to legislate. They pursued marriage equality. They pursued abortion rights. They pursued a whole bunch of things based upon getting the judges to do it rather than having the guts to do it through the legislatures, rather than having the guts to pass legislation in Congress protecting marriage equality. I mean, look at Obama with marriage equality. I mean, he didn't do anything on it. He stood around with Defense of Marriage Act for years and years. And it's only because of the Supreme Court with Obergefell, right, in 2015 that we have marriage equality now. And now that's in danger because what you did was, rather than legislate it, rather than have the guts to do that, you let the Supreme Court do it. So once you have 3 or 4 of those folks turn over, swap out, now it's gone. Yeah, so I mean, it is. There's like
women's rights,
right?
Gone.
Right. Well, hey, look,
productive rights, gone.
Do you know what most people don't realize is 2 years ago, Virginia passed the Equal Rights Amendment, became the 38th state to do so. Right. So this goes back as long as I've been alive, I think. So right, and the Biden administration is refusing to publish the Equal Rights Amendment. They just won't even take it to court. They won't do anything about it. I mean, where is the guts? But meanwhile, like we were saying, Tony Blinken is traipsing around the world buying weapons to make sure the last Ukrainian dies fighting the last Russian. I mean, it is. There's a. But it also goes back to what you touched on about how we in our society are squeezed. The working class has been squeezed dry. The middle class is reaching that point as well because we've got this overhead, right, that we allow. This overhead for healthcare, for education costs, for housing costs. We all just kick it up. I mean, the only industries in this country that you can speak of are the financial industries, the military industries, and the oil and gas industry. I mean, even the agriculture industry, as large as it was, doesn't have the power it once had. And so all that is overhead. And we just keep paying it up, as you said, Roger, just like I don't even know how to describe it. Again, let's not get too inappropriate, right? But why are we letting this happen? Why are we letting these things occur? And I mean, the fear of that it could get worse. It's going to get worse if we keep doing what we've done because it just worsens. It just worsens.
To answer your question, we are letting it happen because they learned the art of the sell.
Yeah,
it's like, as you will hear me sing in a bit later. We traded in the family farm for snake oil. We bought into the carpetbaggers' lies. you bought the dream. You, American voters, bought the dream from the snake oil salesmen and carpetbaggers. And some of you still believe it.
Yeah.
That is the really sad thing. Even though you can't make the bill you can't make it. You cannot make the sums work. You need 4 fucking jobs to make enough to be able to rent an apartment and buy groceries for your family. And God forbid that you should ever want to put petrol in the car and drive to the beach, or spend $10 at Coney Island. It's out of the question.
We've got tens of millions of people, right, whose health insurance plan is literally don't get sick because they can't afford it. Even if they have insurance, you can't afford insurance because your deductible is $8,000, $10,000, $12,000 a year.
Yeah, but we know all this. But the interesting question is, how do they continue year after year? How is it that Nancy Pelosi and all those other arseholes in the Congress get to swan around and fly to Taiwan and poke eyes in the bloody Chinese leaders, poke sticks in their eyes? Well, what are they thinking of? Do they not understand that there's only 300 million of you? There's lots and lots of people in the world. And did we not all agree in Paris on the 10th of December in 1948 that we should have equal human rights all over the world? And we wrote, well, mainly Eleanor Roosevelt, I've been taught, but wrote 30 articles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And the United States ignores all of them all the time.
Here's something I learned today. I was looking up some other information and I came across which are the nations that have the death penalty for homosexuality. Well, there's 11 of them. Well, which ones are they? And well, sure enough, 8 of those 11 have U.S. military bases in them or buy American weapons. 8 of 11 nations that will kill people because they're gay have American military bases or have those weapons or have American military weapons. We sell them to them. The 3, Roger, that don't fall in that category: Iran, Afghanistan, and Yemen. So Iran, a nation we're destroying with sanctions; Afghanistan, a nation that we're starving to death; and Yemen, of course, a nation that we are just, contributing everything we can to that genocide, right? But that's the reality. And your point about these people, Pelosi, Blinken, Jake Sullivan, all those Republicans, they're access traders. Their job is transactional. That's their job. Their job is to ensure access, to provide transactions, to make everything go along so that everyone can get along, so that the profits keep going, the money keeps going, and we all get squeezed. And then it's such a lust, such a greed, right? That if you have to push it to nuclear Armageddon, if we have to push it to the point where we have with Ukraine in order to make sure our weapons sales continue, what's one of the things I think people should realize about the war in Ukraine, it's much larger than the Ukraine. Of course, say the Nord Stream pipeline's getting blown up, right? Look at the export of American liquid natural gas over the last year, right? But also too, all these nations are now buying F-35s. Poland's buying F-35s. The Dutch are buying F-35s. They're all buying all these things. It is a racket. And it's meant to make sure the profits, the money keeps rolling. But you know what? I had a question from Bill Astor, who's a retired Air Force officer, and he writes quite well now, quite poignantly and prolifically against war. His Substack, for people who like to go to follow him, I encourage you to do, is Bracing Views. So go find Bill on Bracing Views. But this dovetails into what you were just saying and ties into your music a bit, right? And he says, I've got a question for Roger. Based on the Pink Floyd album, The Final Cut. On that album, Roger asks, what happened to the post-war dream? Maggie Thatcher, what have we done? He goes on, I'd like his opinion on whether it's worse now than it was in the 80s under Thatcher and Reagan. In the 80s, we did business with Gorbachev and the Soviet Union. There was a peace movement, huge nuclear freeze movement, et cetera, et cetera. So, he says, is Roger angrier now than he was on The Final Cut? Because I am. And I think if you can elaborate what you're just saying, what have we done? How have we gotten here, man? How have we gotten like this?
Well, I think I half answered that question a few minutes ago, but it's like I was saying, I'm listening to Chris, our good friend Chris Hedges, talking to Noam Chomsky, a man who I've been following not all my life. I didn't discover him until maybe 25 years ago, but I've been following him really closely. And, Noam he's really interesting to listen to upon exactly what the question that, yes, it is worse. Yes, it's much, much worse. There was a period in the 70s after the anti-war movement of the 60s and very early 70s against the Vietnam War, where I think probably mainly because of conscription, people did wake up and go, what are we doing? They never did it completely. And there was no actual real waking up at the end of the Vietnam War and everybody going, what have we done? We have just mass murdered millions of people. For what? Because we've got this notion that somehow we're going to be the next Roman Empire and that we are going to rule the world by force. And we're going to break eggs. It's a bit like, what's the name, Albright saying, oh yeah, so 500,000 Iraqi children died. We think it's worth it. What? Madeline? What did you just say? It's a heavy price to pay, but we think it's not your fucking kids, is it? They're Iraqi children. How dare you say such a thing?
They're psychopaths. They're psychopaths, I mean, they are.
And they still are, but they still are. They're still psychopaths. But why are they allowed to have any say in the governing of a country that considers itself to be at heart fair? That all men are created equal and all that guff that's in the Constitution or that it's in the Declaration of Independence. Anyway, it was something one can only assume that it was something written by a bunch of slave owners who didn't actually mean any of it.
Right.
Because if they did mean it, Jefferson and the rest of them, how could it be that they had slaves? And yet they're saying all this lordly sounding stuff. So it was always a bit, the problem is that the devil that is the white supremacist driver of those politics is still alive and well in the hearts of far too many good old boys in pickup trucks and oligarchs in limousines going backwards and forwards from the dead lying in the field to their banks, where they're putting the profits made on the dead bodies, not just of foreigners, but of their own boys, of their own soldiers. All your comrades who died in Iraq and Afghanistan, and I don't know any of the dead ones, but I know quite a few of the live ones. But hundreds, millions of dead all over the world just to line their pockets, and that's what it's for. They don't bring anything to these people. When they go and stick a bloody revolver up Gaddafi's arsehole in a suburb,
right,
in Libya, they don't liberate anything. Nobody gets liberated. They create chaos, the chaos that they intended. That great, there's that great thing with Wesley Clark talking about his meetings with Wolfowitz and with Rumsfeld in the Pentagon, and the guy saying to him, it's worse than you think. It's not just Libya. There are 7 countries. And we're going to destroy them all, turn them all to chaos, rubble, destroy them. Why? Well, because it suits us. It suits our purposes. Iraq is, they've got oil. There's oil there. And it's also in a good place strategically. But no buts. We're just going to go in and destroy them. Kill everybody we need to. And destroy the country. And they have.
And it's for people who try and separate Ukraine for what we did in the Muslim world and then what we did in Central America before that and in Southeast Asia before that, right? And going back to the Philippines and everything else. It's the same people. It's literally the same people. And there are 2 driving forces, in my opinion, Roger. It's the money, it's the commerce. In Ukraine, it's the fossil fuels, right? And it's megalomania. I don't know where one begins, the other, but there is a real desire for power, a desire to see the world as a game of risk, to be the Roman Empire, as you say, and to follow that, and to have the arrogance, though, to think, I'm always reminded what Tacitus said, what the Scottish warlord Calgulus said about the Romans. They make a desolation and declare it peace. That's what we did. We went into Iraq, destroyed that country. We spent decades destroying that country. Then we finally occupied it and made sure we put everyone under the ground who would refuse our allegiance to us, who weren't going to follow us. One of the things that haunts me, because it was one of those things where I remember where I was in Iraq as my second time, when you're there and it takes you a while. It does. It takes you a while to break through. I didn't have what a lot of people have in terms of resisting these things right away, going along with it, and you lie to yourself and you have a shell that it takes a long time to break through. Finally, one day in Iraq on my second time, I realized I had 153 Marines and sailors under my command. We were in Anbar province, very violent, getting into gunfights and IED and rocket attacks every day, And, the 153 kids I had in my command, I realized it just hit me. And from then I was never the same. And it took me a while to have the courage to do something about it. But 51 of them would have been fighting us. If they were Iraqi, if they were young Anbari men, right? If they were young men in that part of Iraq, those 153, 51 would have been fighting us. 51 of them would have been in Abu Ghraib, and 51 of them would have been dead, because there's no difference between our kids and their kids. And it took me way too long to get that. But these people who are in power, they don't have that. They're either dumb to the costs of the war, or they're psychopaths. They're politically craven. They're scared to death of the generals and the admirals. They think war is good politics, and they want the weapons companies' donations. I mean, that's it. I mean, that's what they want, as well as the banks are tied all into this. The fossil, ExxonMobil, biggest client, the Pentagon, right? It's all tied together. It's all tied together.
You know what? You may or may not know this, but I've now been declared persona non grata in Krakow, which is a town in Poland, and this will probably spread through the whole of Poland. Okay, and the reason that has happened is because I've been doing everything that I can think of and that is in my power to try and encourage people in the West, politicians in the West, particularly and specifically Joe Biden, because he's the president of the United States, to start the diplomatic process that is going to happen with the encouragement of the United States of America. Can't happen without America, because America is pulling all the NATO strings, telling everybody in Europe what to do. Why the Europeans are going along with it, I have no idea, because they are killing themselves. Right. Europe is disappearing beneath the waves. This administration in the United States couldn't give a shit. It's what Victoria Nuland said when she was taped on her phone talking to Jeffrey what's-his-face, right, who was the ambassador there, when they were planning the illegal coup to remove the democratically elected government of the Ukraine from power and impose and put in a puppet, which right, they did. They succeeded in doing that. And it's all there. And as part of her conversation that was recorded, Victoria Nuland said, "Fuck the Europeans." Right. On the phone.
Fuck the EU. Yep.
Fuck them.
Exactly.
Yep. We don't give a shit. They don't give a shit about anybody. And what they want in the Ukraine is Libya. They want rubble. That they couldn't give a shit about a single Ukrainian person. Not one. None of them. They want rubble and dead people. Then maybe they can go in a bit later and invest money and whatever and be in complete control of whatever it turns out to be there at the end. But they want it to be devastated. That's why Biden and Blinken won't stop it, which they could tomorrow. Well, because I've been saying this, because you know what everybody will say to me? Putin should just withdraw. He started. No, he didn't start it. He was provoked into it. He did invade, and it was a heinous crime. And Vladimir, I'm really angry with you. You mad fucking dog. You're a gangster just like Biden and Blinken. You know better than they are. But you were outrageously provoked. You had been warning them for 20 years that they had to just hold off a bit and stop driving missiles, nuclear missiles, and NATO armaments up to his doorstep, which is what they were trying to do. And he warned them and warned them and warned them, and they took no notice at all. I've read all his speeches, 2004, 2008, 2019, 2021. I've read what Putin had to say about it all, and he didn't really waver from the basic thing. And Lavrov as well, the foreign minister, the current foreign minister. If you listen to them, it's like they throw their hands up in the air and they say, "Why don't they hear us? Why can't they hear what we're saying?" Of course, they do hear it, but they don't give a fuck.
That's right.
They love this chaos. They love it. They want the war. They've all said they want the war to go on for as long as possible. That's why they're feeding this ridiculous notion to anybody who'll listen to it that they're going to win it.
Right.
Really? The Russians are going to lie down. Does nobody remember the Second World War?
I think
26 million of them died fighting the Nazis.
The idea is that you're going to destabilize Russia and the Putin government's going to fall. In my estimation, you are much more likely to see Zelensky's government fall during this and something terrible coming into power. They are a far-right government, and this war just go on forever. I mean, you have, your point about Putin. Last year, he stood in front of his generals and said, "We have nowhere left to retreat to." How do you not take that seriously? How do you continue then to provoke him? I mean, the idea, yes, there are tigers in this world. If the tiger comes in your village, you fight it and you kill it. But to go out into the jungle, to go out into the woods with a stick and poke the tiger in its den is madness, is absolute madness. And that's what we have here. And again, it gets back to the Roman Empire. They make a desolation, declare it peace. What I'm facing, and I know a lot of my other fellow veterans are facing, is we've got the 20th anniversary of the Iraq War coming up in March. And that's what weighs on me. This election doesn't weigh on me. Other things, it's, my God, have to endure that, have to hear about how we brought the Iraqis liberty, we brought them freedom, we brought them elections, we got rid of Saddam, we did such a good thing for them, those ungrateful, we killed 1 million of them, in Iraq. Even if everything was we wave a wand, Roger, right? And everything was to go be fine. Militias disappear, politics stabilize, Islamic State is gone. It doesn't matter because we poison their air, we poison their ground, and we poison their water, and their children are going to die for decades because we poisoned them. But God, we've got to get the questions and answers. Rose is going to hit us both over the head with something if we don't. So
I had no intention to hit anybody over the head with anything. Because of the timing, you do know people in the control room that people would much rather look at Roger Waters than me. Yes, just so you know. But I'm going to keep it to one question. I think this is an interesting question, and I'm putting it to both Roger and Matt. This is from Dalton Peppers. Actually, it says, "Hi, Rose, Ashley, and Dalton Peppers," so a couple. Today, there are a lot of people who care more about their ideology than facts. What do you think is the most effective way to combat disinformation in the public space? How do you appeal to opposing ideologies?
I'm spotlighted. Does that mean I go first, I guess? I was going to ask Roger that. One thing I did want to say is I did see, as the comments were going by and we were talking about Chelsea and we were talking about Julian, and I saw a comment go by referencing Daniel Hale, and I want to recognize Daniel Hale. If people don't know who Daniel Hale is in prison for exposing the American drone program, for trying to give a voice to people who were murdered in the thousands by that program. And I actually have a letter from Daniel right here. I communicate with him and talk with him as I can. And but no, whoever that was, thank you for bringing up Daniel. I think for me, as I've been campaigning on this, is and getting out. You just got to speak honestly with people. Talk to people, put it in words that they understand, and this idea that we're all living under an overhead where the money gets kicked up. Where, look, I'll go to these candidate forums and I'll have to introduce myself and say who I am, and I'm a socialist, and Medicare for all, and rent control, and living wages, but when I talk about the middle class and the working classes being squeezed, that all that money going to the top because of deliberate government programs, financialization policies, neoliberal policies of both the Democrats and Republicans, people's ears pick up. And people who are Republicans, conservative, libertarians will come over and engage me on that because they see it. It's undeniable. Whether it's the killing overseas, the killing here at home. I mean, look, the war on drugs, 12 overdose deaths a day in North Carolina. It's very real. And as well as then, too, the state of the economic inequality. People are falling behind, on and on and on. People get that. And that's what I found. Just speak openly, honestly, straightforwardly. And you have a good chance of engaging someone in a conversation that you thought you might not have before.
I'm a radical atheist. Does that make me an ideologue? I'm quite serious about this, because if you start talking about ideologues, you're talking about religion mainly, I think. And you're talking about people believing things because they've been told by their mum and dad or their grandpa or the whatever, or the priest or whoever it might be, or whatever it is. Now, you could say that this would apply, for instance, in the USSR at some points because they've been told stuff by their parents who were communists and believed in that ideology and blah, 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 blah. And so a lot of it it's probably true that a lot of ideological beliefs come to us from our parents. So maybe it was pure dumb luck for me that my father actually was a Christian, certainly at the beginning of the war and before the war. In fact, that's why he refused to go and fight the Nazis, was because he was a Christian. And so he told them, he said, it's against my religion. I can't kill anyone, so I'm afraid I can't join the army. And they went, okay. And he drove an ambulance, but he then became interested in politics and eventually joined the Communist Party. And at a certain point, he had a change of heart and he went back to the conscription board and said, excuse me, sir, I've changed my mind. Actually, the need to fight the Nazi menace trumps my attachment to the teachings of Jesus Christ. So I will join the army. I am prepared to kill people. So, oh, jolly good, sign here, and he did his basic training and then his officer training and was then killed. So does that make me the inheritor of somebody who does things because he thinks they're right, not because he's been taught by Jesus or anyone else that is what you have to do? There's a book of rules and you have to follow it. I think it does. My mother was an atheist, whatever, I don't know. I've told my mother's story again and again. I'm going to tell it again now because I have a platform here with you. No, Matthew, and this is how you behave. This is why you should be in the Senate rather than all these fucking assholes who are. That's why we need you. And it's because you subscribe to what my mother taught me. We've been, I'm not sure where we've been, but I was struggling with something. I'm 13 years old, just sort of, beginnings of puberty. And I'm struggling with some question about something. I don't even remember what it was. And my mum looked at me one day and she said, you're struggling with something, aren't you? And I went, well, yeah, I'm a bit. And she said, let me give you some advice, Roger. And I went, what is that, Mum? And she said, you will have to struggle with all sorts of questions all through your life. We all do, right? Unless we're ideologues and we don't have to struggle because we know that whatever it might be, the earth is flat or that we're all going to heaven with Jesus in the rapture, whatever it is. So she said, you will have to struggle. Here's my advice. Look at the question that you're struggling with from all sides carefully. Read. This sounds like Smerconish. Read, but read everything. not just what suits you. Read from all sides. Look at the thing very carefully from all sides. It's hard work, but you have to do it. When you've done that, the work is over. The next bit's easy. But what is the next bit, Mum? You just do the right thing, darling.
Right.
So you read and read and read. You look at it as analytically as you possibly can, and then you do the right thing. What is the right thing, though, Matthew Ho? That you don't destroy people's countries and lives, or kill people, or steal from the poor and give to the rich. You do the opposite. You don't steal. You just say, excuse me, you've got too much. This old lady over here living in a fucking cardboard box needs this,
right,
so that she's got enough to eat, and so that she has the basic human rights of shelter, the right to liberty, and all of that, the right to life, the basic human needs. Until we've all got that, you don't get your fifth Ferrari. Forget it. That's wrong.
That's people have heard me say it before. If I'm in the Senate, no one's getting another $15 billion aircraft carrier unless we get healthcare, right? And this idea of the ideologues, and it brings me back to what we first spoke about with Palestine, and I'm there with Tarek Kauf and Ellen Davidson and others, and we're getting into fights with settlers. And these settlers believe that a magic real estate agent in the sky has given them this land, and they can kill for it. Yeah. But there are things we can take from things. So I wear two things on me, and I'm an atheist as well. And I wear two things on me as well. And I wear a cross, and I also wear some Nordic symbols. And the cross there's a lot behind that, but it is to remember of the rebel Jesus, right? Of the man who took on the Roman Empire, who would not have been okay with any of this. But then the other is the Nordic symbols are because a lot of veterans who I've been in contact with, guys I was in therapy with who were in prison, that's what saved them, was finding something like that, the Norse stuff. And I wear that to remember who I've got an obligation for. These guys who believed this shit, who went to war believing that we were right, who thought that we had the white hats on, and then found out, no, we've got the fucking black hats on, man. And they come home, they get addicted, they end up in jail, right? I mean, and it's that who we have these obligations for, let alone, for me, it's the dead over there, the suffering, I wear I'm all marked up with tattoos, Roger, right? And a lot of us do this. It's our way of trying to do something to make our experiences mean something. So we write it on our bodies.
It's very hard. Yeah, sorry to interrupt. It's very hard, though, to get people to go Charles Kingsley on this, the water babies, Mrs. Do As You Would Be Done By. The idea of putting yourself in empathy, the ability, most people find empathy very difficult. It's very difficult for them to see Ahed Tamimi's cousin shot to death in Nablus or wherever it was, and immediately go, what if that was my cousin Julian?
Right.
My nephew, my son. What if my child was being shot down by an occupying army, right? An army occupying our land that we've lived on for thousands of years, and where we've tended our olive trees and looked after and grew all the Jaffa oranges and built all those orchards and things that are now owned by the Israelis, and they're slowly trying to kill us all or drive us out. And we won't be, we're resisting. And you and I help their resistance. But imagine if that was our children. I often say this to people. Imagine if you were being bombed. Can you imagine what it's like? Can you imagine what it was like to live in Laos when you were dropping, like, I don't know, 1 million tons of bombs a day just into the jungle, just because you've got them? And you have to drop them, because if you don't have to replace them. And that's the way that you get the money from the taxpayers and put it into your own pockets. That's how you do it. That's one of the ways you do it. Smedley Butler was not wrong. Most of your listeners won't have heard of Smedley Butler. This was the most decorated serviceman in American history of the Marines, I think.
Yep, won 2 medals of honor. If the rules were different, he would have had 3. And
Exactly.
He came out and he said, "War is a racket. I was nothing more than a big boy, a muscle man for the gangsters of capitalism, for Wall Street. That's what I was. I was a muscle man for Wall Street." And that's exactly and we are now. Exactly what we are now.
True now.
Yeah.
That's why Noam Chomsky, age 94, sits there and you can hear his heart breaking because he's going, well, it's worse now than it's been since the Second World War. And you go, he's right. It is. It's unbearable that they, the ruling class, have been allowed to wreak this havoc, not just on this incredibly beautiful country, and country with so much talent and so much potential to be what it pretends to be. And they've just, and they haven't just destroyed, they've destroyed so many beautiful places around the world, and they continue to do so.
And unless they get what they want. And now we've reached the point where they will kill us all to get what they want. They have where you and I stop and say this is madness, or we go back to what we were just talking about, where this is wrong.
Yeah,
we cannot do wrong. We need to do right. They don't have that. These are the people because that's our system. Those are the people that get to the top. Psychopaths thrive in this thing. They really do. You brought up something. I'm cognizant of time here. You brought up something about empathy. Yeah. And I want to use that to tee up the music. It's a song called "The Bar," and it's a new song of yours. I heard it.
Years.
I've heard it when you performed it in Raleigh. You opened it with explaining about Standing Rock, and Standing Rock is a place where I was arrested at Standing Rock with our friend Tarek Koff, at that moment, I had felt like that was the singularly most important thing I'd ever done in my life. The singular biggest act of service I ever provided in my life was getting arrested at Standing Rock. In the sense of being in the Marine Corps 10 years and all that, the only time I felt I've ever had my white hat on was at Standing Rock or in the West Bank, right? Or in Charlottesville or in other places, and it took me until my 40s to do that. But, so be it. But if you want to explain the bar to folks.
Well, yeah, there are references to a Lakota lady in the 2 verses that I do during the show at the beginning of the show. I do 2 verses of the bar. The bar as a song, it's 15 minutes long. It's a long song with many, many verses. But there were a couple of verses in it that I regret not being able to get into the show. And they're about Raytheon. They're about Grumman, Northrop. They're about all the arms industries, but they're identified as Raytheon in this bit. Yeah. And I thought I was going to do it when we were in Glenview in Arizona. And then I realized that Glenview is actually 500 miles from where the Raytheon headquarters are. And it was unlikely that there'd be anybody in the audience who actually worked for Raytheon, Glenview on the Pacific coast. Anyway, so part of the reason that Rose said, "Will you sing a song?" And I went, "No, I won't," because to pick up a guitar now is difficult. This afternoon, I was feeling a bit slightly guilty, and I thought, bugger it, I'm going to try and sing those verses that I didn't manage to sing on the road. Because what was important about the bar in the show, and what's great about it, is that it's a bit like the internet, which we must defend to our last drop of blood.
Right.
And it's being taken away from us. I can imagine in another year or something, you'll never see me on the internet again. Zuckerberg and the other arseholes will have closed it all down or you, none of you, you'll be banned. You won't be there, we will be treated like RT and shut down God, who I'm not allowed to, nobody in the mainstream media, apart from Smirconish, and I know he regrets it, poor Michael. Because of everything that came after that.
Right.
Luckily, I spoke to another communicator Joe Rogan when I was in Austin. And I knew nothing about him. I'd never seen one of his shows. And people said, you should do this. He'll talk to you for 3 hours. And I went, no, he won't.
Yeah, he
said,
will.
yes, he will. And he did. And he listened. And we had a lovely conversation. I really liked the man. So I'm so happy that he's there having long conversations with people who've got something sensible to say. But so it's super important that we keep doing this. We keep having webinars and things, because the mainstream media, I'm dead as far as they're concerned. And as far as so many people, you know, like the Germans are trying to ban me from playing music in Germany. The fucking Germans. I mean, dear God in heaven. Not that there is a God in heaven, but the Germans. Because I support BDS.
Yeah, I support BDS too, just to make sure everyone knows we're not going to be on anything. I hadn't been on MSNBC since 2014. And then last year at the disaster happening in Afghanistan, everything else, they had me back on. And I went on with, excuse me, my Julian Assange poster behind me.
Yeah.
I ain't ever getting back on MSNBC again, you know, after that, you know, I mean, like, but it's so, yeah, let's get to the music, because we'll be here all night. And
if you did go on, it would be very hard to get the smell off your trousers.
Well, God, man, it's just, and we could talk about, this is a whole other thing to talk about, the future of media. Because, you know, a few years ago, Roger, 5 years ago, this wouldn't have been possible, or it would have been real shaky. It wouldn't have worked that well, you know, but that's what gives me hope. That's what gives me hope, is this type of media, this technology that we're just starting to get a handle on. What can we do with it? Because it's got CNN and Fox, and it's got the Democrats and Republicans scared to death. And that's what we have to do, is we have to figure out how to use this to movement build, to coordinate, to communicate, to mobilize, right? And fight asymmetrically to bring down this edifice. But all right, let's get to the bar. Okay. That's what people want to hear. All right.
One, two. It is working. All right, it is working. Where's the loud pedal? There it is. Rose, wish me luck, mate. Here we go. Let's see. Does everybody in the bar feel pain? Yeah, sure, they do. Is everybody in the bar a little mad? Yeah, both me and you. We traded in the family farm for snake oil, bought into the carpetbagger's lies. Cross with these feelings of loss. Just watching the Liberty boats sail on by. You can't help them build a bomb in Rafah, but they'll sell it on in Kalamazoo. And some crazy motherfucker's bound to drop it on a busload of kids going to school. You can hold up your hands in denial, the choices in your head, just doing your job, just an innocent cog. But those little Yemeni kids will still be dead. when I'm drinking my coffee in the morning, and I read about all this Yemeni shit. I'll feel so fucking bad for that grieving foreign dad, picking through the bus that's just been hit. So on Monday, when you're walking through the factory gates, and on Friday, when you're picking up your chick, you'll be sitting on the curbside like the bicycle thief. But with no boy to put his arms round daddy's neck. Gonna call up a friend in Australia and order in some bush tucker snacks and dance here with you to the didgeridoo and listen while you see me on the maps. Is that a foghorn in the distance? Oh, we're heading for the rocks. Come sit here by the fireside and hold me in your arms. And tell me, how was life before the cops? Whoa. Right, I'm gonna go and turn it off now. I'll put my watch back.
Wow.
Yeah, Roger.
Wow.
I don't even know what to say to that. Obviously, as you can tell, I have no problem running my mouth, and thank you for that. Particularly for me too, again, because of the resonance of that song when I heard you perform it in Raleigh, and then today, we get this email. Hey, I did these verses for you guys.
You know what was interesting, Matt, is that when we went to Raleigh, we went from Philadelphia, I think, or Washington. I can't remember. Maybe it was Washington just before. And everybody going, oh, we're going south of the Mason-Dixon line now. They're all going to be rednecks and they'll be Republicans and they're all going to hate you and they're blah, 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 blah. And we went there and the bar that I'm getting little shivers now.
Yeah.
The idea that we're all in the bar and we can talk to one another and that we can be there with our friends and also with strangers and we can exchange opinions without all getting crazy and angry and whatever. And that's the important thing about my show, is that because of the bar and that idea, it spreads so that the 16,000 people or however many there are there,
yeah,
they're all in the bar and they get it. And so when I'm on the road, this is why the Germans can go fuck themselves, the ruling class, not the people, and they will not stop me touring in. The SDP and the Green Party, I'm sorry to have to tell you this, the German Green Party are joining with the SDP to try and get me banned from performing in Germany. But anyway, what I'm saying is that it was very moving to me that there we were in Raleigh. And although obviously everybody in the audience doesn't agree with all my politics or whatever, they all get that we're all fucking human beings, right, and that we have to look after one another, and that's what's important. That's what a developed country should be doing, is saying, we will look after you. What do you need? And then being quiet while they tell you. And I guarantee you the people in Venezuela won't say, oh, we need you to impose fucking Guaido as a president here when none of us have voted for him? None of us can stand him. What are you talking about? No, we need you to lift the Senate. Stop trying to destroy a country. We love Chavez. We love Simon Bolivar. We love the idea of a society where we all look after one another. It's like Roger Waters in the bar. That's what we want. Leave us the fuck alone. And that's what all the countries all over the world want to say. And what you will want to say to your fellow senators is, can we just leave them alone? Let's try and make life better for the people who are living here in this beautiful and great country. You know, can't we all work together to make life better for all of us? I know that's what you wanted. That's why I'm here tonight.
Yeah, I know.
I so wholeheartedly agree with. Having watched you and Ray McGovern and people those settlers trying to get you to react, I thought it was so cool that not one of you would react to them. Because if you had, they'd have shot you dead.
Right. Well, I mean, hey, one of them hit me with his car. You mean they weren't fooling around.
Well, he obviously wasn't a very good driver.
You know, but like, it's true. I mean, that's what you're up against. You're up against these guys who are going to bully you because, again, the magic real estate agent in the sky told them it's their land. In Nabi Saleh, where Qusay al-Tamimi, who was shot dead this week, and Bassem's family live, Ahed Tamimi's family live. The issue there, Roger, is there's a well that had belonged to that village for centuries. Yeah. And the settlers said, God says it's ours. And the Israeli government said it's theirs, and the American government says, here's guns to make that real then, to make them keep that well. And that's what we're up against. And God, I mean, we could do this all night.
Yes.
I
have people already angry at me. You know, my role is to, be a campaign manager. And part of what is so important about this dialogue, about your support, Roger, why can't we put a man like Matt Howe in the U.S. Senate? Why can't we? When, the Democrats and the Republicans, where they get their funding is dark money. And in fact, the Democrats take more dark money than the Republicans. And that's something people should know. They are not funded by the people. They are not beholden to the people. And this is how we end up with, these warmongers, these people who don't have anything to offer but the fewest of crumbs. And part of why, if you want a serious answer to why can't we put Matt Howe in the Senate, is because of their millions compared to what we have.
That's right. If I may speak.
Oh, yeah.
The reason that we can't is because the Senate seat is for sale.
Right.
That was one of the lovely things that Joe, bless him, said to me the other day on the thing, because I said at the end, I sort of got a bit cocky and I went, let me ask you a question, Joe. And I said, what's at the top of your bucket list? If you could have your 3 wishes or whatever, and quick as a flash, he said, get money out of American politics. Right. I said, what, you mean repeal Citizens United? And he said, absolutely, tomorrow. That would be the first thing that I would do. So it's insane, this system, and call it a democracy and let rich people buy as many TV ads as they want, telling us what a horrible person Matthew Howe is, when we know he's a really good man and he's exactly the man that we want to represent us in the Senate. Exactly
right. And so we are doing what we can in these final weeks to get ads out there. $2,000 can reach over 70,000 people. $1,000 can reach over 35,000 people. $500 can reach almost 20,000 people. $280, 10,000 people. $100, 3,500 people. And $56 would reach 2,000. Now we have over 200 people here tonight. And this is the part where I start asking, can you give? Can you be that hero who there is a 2,900 maximum that you could give. Well, if you could be that hero who could give that 2,900, then that is going to reach a lot of people. But I always preface this with this. If you're fighting to change the world, you are always my hero. And I can't afford to give this campaign $2,900, okay? So I don't want anybody here to feel like, you know, I'm saying, you know, that because again, if you can give anything, it's going to make a difference. And this energy makes a difference. But yes, if people can give and give generously, again, look, with 210 people who are still here, if every one of you just gave $10, that's $2,100. Michael Mudd, thank you for that 50.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I can afford it, and I would in a heartbeat, but I'm a pesky foreigner and I'm not allowed to.
I know,
No, I'm serious.
know.
I'm serious.
That's
I'm
You
yeah.
know, I would have asked if I didn't
I
know
can
that.
imagine people out there going, what's he doing? He's got deep. But yeah, I have, and I promise you, I'd reach into them every day, and it's flying out there into good things, you know, and good causes. But I can't contribute.
I know.
Oh,
They would love me to do that, so they could throw me out the country.
Well, you know what, you've given a great deal, and from the bottom of my heart, it you know, let's just say in terms of things on my bucket list, this evening is pretty high up there on, oh, here's something I can cross out.
Well, you know, and the idea too is like
larger waters. Okay, that's pretty cool. But
yeah, I mean the idea.
$100. Tariq has given 70, 100 for Victor. Okay, yes, everyone who is doing this, you are making it possible to get this word out. And we need to get this word out to as many people as possible. That's why I was giving you those numbers, because, you know, we've been fighting to keep the lights on. And that's the reality. I'm a campaign manager. I've got to make sure my staff gets paid. And we have very few people all working for very little money. Where, you know, I'm in this because of my heart. I'm not in this for the money, because of anything I've done in politics. If I were in it for the money, I'd be the dumbest bitch in the world. I'd be real bad at making money. But I'm in this for my heart, but I also got to make sure that I pay my staff. But I want more than that. I want these ads out there. We have some fantastic ads. We had an amazing donation of time from a film company that is called, I'm going to give them a shout out here, Fight Bullshit, Create Truth. And they did some wonderful ads for us. And I want to get them out as widely as possible, because you know what? This is, in these final weeks, those people who are undecided, this is a time where you get to them. People aren't, the truth is, people like me and a lot of people here I know who are very into politics, this is what we do. But for the average person, they're not even paying attention to a lot of this until those final weeks. And, you know, I have a dream that we are going to have not just Matt Ho, but other Matt Ho's in the US Senate, in the Congress. And just by the way, Roger, I have to note, the Green Party of the United States is not the Green Party of Germany. And I
believe you.
You know, personally, thoroughly denounce their neoliberal politics. Not that I get to be the official spokesperson of the Green Party. I'm just saying that we are a much more anti-imperialist, pro-humanity party.
The people that you're appealing to now, you know, the main thing is that you have to make a showing. You have to make a showing. You have to start giving hope to other Matthew Ho's.
Right.
If Matthew becomes a member of the Senate, that will be amazing. That would be huge news everywhere. You know, so push him as hard as you can. Get as much input. I know you are, and I'm watching you doing it. You're doing it in front of my very eyes, and I can see some of the stuff clicking by on the chats as well. So, you know, I would thank all the people who've watched us.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I am so touched by everyone. William just gave 50. Thank you so much. Yes, a lot of people, have a little shame when it comes to asking for money. And some people have noted that I come off as pretty shameless. Now, first of all, it's because I've lived a pretty poor life in a lot of ways, and I've lived in a lot of poverty. And guess what? Poor people, we don't have the luxury of that kind of shame. We got to do what we got to do to survive. But
I just noticed Ken Mayers donated. Roger, Ken was one of the veterans who was with us in Palestine, along with Tarek and Ray. I mean, the amount of money in this. I was just at an event last night. You go to all these candidate forums. Last night was hosted by the Charlotte Business Alliance. And there was no speech making. Like you didn't get a chance to say what you were or your platform was. And it's because it was the Business Alliance. The whole thing was for not small businesses, but regional businesses, corporate businesses. And Courtney and Sammy and Nat, who were part of my team, were there. Very nice hotel, giving away drinks. The whole purpose for these business people to give their cards to the candidates, right? So that the machine continues, the wheels are greased, right? The financial cog. I'm still thinking about. I listened to your song in the bar. I don't know how many times in the last hour or two before we started this, because it haunts me. It's going to haunt me. And the line, just doing your job, just an innocent cog, but those little Yemeni kids will still be dead. And I mean, the money that sustains all that and the willingness of people to do that, to allow the suffering, whether it's overseas or here, Veterans for Peace, a big thing of ours, a motto is our wars overseas reflect our wars at home, right? I mean, and that's that relationship. By the way, the money involved in all of this is what continues it. And the thing about this is that this campaign, we run it, November 8th comes, but it's not the end. We've got to build, we've got to organize. We're creating a network here, an infrastructure, and to have it so that we do have other candidates running, more importantly, people involved on the ground level, doing jobs like Rose is doing. And then we need to get more influential people like you, Roger, involved in this, like willing to stick your neck out.
If
I mean, that's a big
Matt,
thing. Yeah.
Craig Kitano gave $250 and was asking people to match it. So remember, we're at a fundraising pitch.
Oh, that's So
I just wanted to bring that up. And
but I mean, your willingness to stick your neck out for this, right? And stick your neck out for all sorts of things. Oh, yeah, they're going to bang you from Germany. Good luck getting back into New York when you come back from Europe. Good luck, man. So that is my appreciation, and my appreciation for everyone here, because our folks, most of our folks, a lot of you all live paycheck to paycheck. And I know that. And so I appreciate everything everyone's doing. And we need it, though, because that's the way it works. In order for us to get people to know who we are, know that we exist, know that we're offering a voice for people who are living paycheck to paycheck, we need your support.
Yes. And just to finish what I was saying before, because it just is worth saying, why I'm not shameless about this is not just my own personal life, but because who should be ashamed are these business people, these big businesses that bribe and steal and are stealing our futures, are stealing our environment, are putting us, not to be grim, but we are moving so close to nuclear war, who are stealing the lives of children in Yemen, children in Palestine, children all over the world. That's who should be ashamed. So I'm not going to be ashamed of saying give and give what you can, so that not just so that we can make an amazing showing from Matt, but to inspire, as Roger said, inspire the other Matt. This is hard work, and you got to have a lot of guts to do what Matt has done, which has been basically to put his life aside and to take a whole lot of crap and infuriate some of the highest level power players in the nation. And we went up against them. They tried to keep the Green Party off the ballot. We went up against them with their $1 million lawyers, and we beat them.
Well done.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
We did.
that,
We did.
you know, when they first did it, I said to myself, I'm going to fight them. We're going to win. And, you know, my husband passed away just over a year ago, but I truly felt his spirit. Like, I'm not going to fight as one Roby. I'm fighting as Jeff Roby and Rose Roby. We're both fighting this. And would he have given up? Absolutely not. And I wasn't going to, and we weren't going to. And we fought them and we won. And they were scared for Matt to be on the ballot. And now let's give them something to be scared of. Let's keep giving them something to be scared of.
You know what? It's not, they weren't scared of me or the Green Party. They're scared of our agenda. They're scared of people who we represent. They're scared of Medicare for all. They're scared of rent control. They're scared of living wages. They're scared of education for all. They're scared of cutting the Pentagon budget. All these things that affect their donors. That's why they fought us so hard. They don't want anyone on a debate stage, anyone in a campaign who's going to advocate for something that's going to hurt the profits of their donors, right? And it gets back to the point about the money. But Roger, we're well over time here. I appreciate this, man. I really do. I appreciate everyone who's been a part of this tonight, everyone who's been part of the campaign since January. Roger, closing words from you.
Well, I'm loving listening to you and Rose talk, because it's very elevating, you know, and it gives me hope for the future. You know, somebody asked me at a meeting a pro-Palestinian meeting, actually, in Vancouver years and years ago. And I told a story about a French friend of mine. He's dead now. He was inevitably going to be dead quite soon after the story happened, because he was an alcoholic and he smoked about 10 packets of Benson and Hedges a day and blah, blah, blah. And that's kind of irrelevant, except that he was French and it's part of the story. And we sat one morning while he was having his first, you know, triple scotch and smoking half a dozen cigarettes in the sunshine on 54th Street. And I had a cup of coffee. And I asked him something, or was talking to him, and it must have been something philosophical, because he thought long and hard about this. And he said something to me, and I wrote it down. I carried it in my back pocket for many, many years. Now it's in somewhere safe because it was getting frayed. He said, I was here. I felt something. And perhaps I was not alone.
Mm.
And that was like, that went, nope.
Yeah, right.
And
Yeah.
I wrote it down and I kept it. And it may sound like it is meaningless, but it's not. Sitting here with you guys tonight has reminded me that I am not alone. And it's really important that we are many, you know. Just before the start of the Iraq War on February I think it was Valentine's Day or the day after, 2003, there were about 20 million of us in the streets all over the world telling George W. Bush and Tony Blair that they were wrong and we were right. And yet, you know, less than a month later, shock and awe and the rest and all the rest. But we were right, and we are many, and actually we're a lot more than they think, and that's why they're afraid of us. That's what they're fearful of. They're fearful of the truth of Etienne Roedergil's love when he says, "Perhaps I was not alone." They're frightened that we can connect one with another, and that the power of our love is greater than the power of their avarice, and it is. And you two are sort of proving that tonight, and so it will be.
Can't make me cry. I'm wearing a lot of mascara.
You know, that's the power of your show. And I hope that there's a video that people will be able to watch of the show at some point if they haven't seen it. That ability, the music, the imagery, and then your words, your politics, it all intersects and it touches all of us and it rips you open. And you have that connection, not just with the man on the stage, your band, the video imageries, but everyone in that arena. but it does. Your use of music, your use of performance, your use of politics, of imagery, you know, you are touching things on so many levels for people. But they are afraid of us, and rightly so. Our job is to continue it. 2 years ago, after they murdered George Floyd, we put 25 million people onto the streets. The system has evolved. It's a living organism. It knows how to fight back. It knows how to insulate itself. And we have to keep that in mind. And we have to keep persevering and keep remembering everyone we spoke about tonight. The Palestinians, the Yemenis, the Iraqis, the police, the people murdered by our own police in this country.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to keep that in mind. We didn't even talk about climate or anything, right? I mean, there's so much, right? But the poignancy of what you're doing, my appreciation for that, I can't begin to express. And my appreciation for Rose, for Dave, AP, Ryan, everyone involved in this campaign, Mike Gams, who's working the chat, Janie, you know, all our folks, we will win. We will win because there's no alternative.
Yeah.
And hope is not enough. Hope implies that something's going to come from the outside to make things better. We don't have that. It's not coming. No one is coming to rescue us. We have to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. But Roger, I thank you for tonight. This was really, really quite something very special. And thank you.
There is a tipping point, and if we all keep tiptoeing towards it, it is all going to tip. I believe that. So
Right.
Because there's something about the truth which will have its day, and it hasn't had its day for all these hundreds of years. But we are in that. This communicating with other people that you're doing here tonight pushes us towards the point where people go,
And this is why they're going to ban you in Germany, Roger. Truth. This is why. And why you're going to fly back into Kennedy, and they're not going to let you in. I mean, they're not going to let you in, you know, you're going to be, you know, I mean, but yeah, obviously, yeah, but thank you. Thank you. And thank you, everyone. Rose, AP, Dave, Ryan,
Thanks, Rose.
Everyone involved.
Thanks so much.
all right.
Good night, everyone.
Thank
Keep
you.
fighting.
Pleasure. Thank you, audience. All right. Good night, all. Good night, Roger.